All right. So today we have Brittany Charboneau on the podcast. Brittany, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So some people might know you as the funny runner. Let's just start there. Why are you called the funny runner?
I branded myself like 4.5 years ago because I had originally quit my job to become, in my mind, I was going to become a professional runner and a super famous comedian at the exact same time. I was at the time really big into teaching and performing improv and sketch comedy. And so I wanted to be on SNL. And so I was like, if I quit my job to be this person who runs and tries to be funny, like, that's a weird thing to try to explain if people are like, what do you do for a living? So I was like, I'll just call myself the funny runner, and that will just explain everything. So that's where it came from. And then obviously my running has started to take over and kind of been more of the focal point. So I haven't been performing as much, especially with the pandemic. So the funny part I feel like is now just kind of incorporated into my life.
Recently, you just won the Dopey Challenge, which is 4 races in 4 days, and it's the first time that anyone's done this in history. And I want to talk all about that. But before we do, can you give us like a quick overview of like where you were introduced to running, where you fell in love with running, and where it all started?
Yeah, so I think with a lot of us, mine started in 8th grade just because it was the social thing to do. Everybody was just joining the track team because it was something to do. So I was like, I'll do that. Got into the mile and having no concept of how far a mile was and was decent at it. So I liked the longer stuff. So coaches encouraged me to join the cross country team in high school where I did. And I loved running. I mostly liked just the social side of it and having my group of weirdos that was like me and as quirky and I don't know, different, we'll say, as I was. So I ran all throughout high school. And then in college, I walked on as a junior to the cross country team, actually, because I didn't think that I was good enough to be a collegiate athlete, but I had always wanted to. So I ran my last 2 years of college, and then after that was ready to get into the longer distance stuff. So I started marathoning after that and just kind of kept growing from there. And so as I started to set new goals and stuff like that in the marathoning, it just kind of my time started to come down. And then just really it was in the last 4 years that I have started racing elite. And yeah.
So when you say high school, where was this? Was this in Denver?
This was in Denver. Yep.
So you're Colorado all the way through.
Born and raised. Wow. I know.
You don't hear that much.
I know.
You get a lot of transplants.
We do. I welcome everybody because some of our Denverites are like, we have so many people from out of town, but I love it because it's just adding to our mix of people.
Yeah. So and where was college?
College was at Colorado State University, just like an hour north of Denver.
So you start marathoning, and is it pretty off the bat you have success?
No. Although I say that. However, my first marathon, I ran a 3:33 and barely qualified for Boston. And I didn't even know what Boston was then. Like I'd qualified for the Boston Marathon, no idea what that was. So then the next year I ran the Boston Marathon. But I was just getting training plans offline, things like that. So it was, I think people would say like a 3:33 is a good first marathon for sure. But it wasn't an enjoyable marathon by any means. I was in so much pain after. I had no idea how to fuel. So I would say like maybe it was a little bit of success, I guess, but nothing where I was like winning races or anything like that by any means.
So what did you do with that between the first marathon where you run that 3:33 and then I read in 2017, I think you ran a 2:52. What were you doing from there to that 2:52?
Yeah, I was just still running marathons, just practicing, like getting a little bit faster. I had gotten injured somewhere in that time frame. I was living in New Zealand at the time and overtraining, under fueling and I got a pelvic stress fracture, as you can imagine. So that kind of halted things for a little while. So I had to work on getting stronger in that time. Also, I'd started incorporating different HIIT workouts back then because all I had been doing at the time was just running. So worked through an injury during that time, and then just kind of started to chip away at goals, really. I had, like, for the Chicago Marathon in 2015, I really wanted to break 3 hours, and I went out like an idiot, like so many of us probably have. First 8 miles, I was like, I'm killing it. Like, I am so good at this. And then by the end, it was like scraping me off the pavement, and I ran a 3-hour marathon, like, on the dot. Like, there's nothing worse than, like, if you're trying to break a time, you land right on it. And so
Meg might know something
have you
about
done
that.
that?
At 3 hours, 19 seconds. So a little
Oh,
more.
come
but,
on.
Yeah.
I know. And you're like, really, over the course of a marathon, you couldn't have, like, taken extra
Right.
steps in one extra mile. But that, I mean, it just keeps adding to incentive of wanting to keep growing and okay, I'm going to come back. I'm going to break that. Because right now I'm at that, like, 2:30 mark. And I'm like, I'm going to do it, one of these days. So it's just kind of been chipping away at goals, really. I started working with my coach after I ran the 252 at a local marathon here in Denver. That was my first marathon win. And then it's really just started to, like, the times and everything have just started to kind of fall off after working with my coach.
Well, that's good to know.
So ironically, my PR right now is a 252. But I read that after you hit this 252, that's when you decided to go professional. Like, explain that to me.
Yeah, I love that you get it, because at the time, because looking back, that was not a time that you just quit your job and you just go pro, right? So I love that you get that. I'm sorry, my cat is meowing if you hear.
What's the cat's name?
His name is Snacks. We have 2 cats. We have Snacks and we have Bill Clinton, and Snacks is very vocal. So it was so funny. So when I ran that 252, I was in a local improv show. It was like a 3-month show. It was called Denver's Next Improv Star. And I was in the finale the night before this marathon. And I didn't end up winning the show, but then, so I was like, that's fine. I'll just wake up and go win the marathon. So that's what I did. But I was like, I just was a runner-up in a local improv show, and I just ran a 252. I should become professional at both. I don't know. I think I've just kind of always, looking back, I think I've always had this little bit of naive confidence where I just kind of trust that things will come together, or I set big goals and I just kind of trust that I bank on my work ethic, really, and that I'll get to my goals and maybe exceed them. So, because I mean, really, where the professional runners, this was in 2017, where the professional runners were running were, it was 2:30s still. I wasn't even anywhere close, but I was just kind of thought, well, if I have more time to work on this, I've got a coach, like, I could do this. So that's kind of where it started. But looking back, I'm like, I don't think that was grounds to quit my job at all.
Yeah, but that's insane. Like, I think that for a lot of people, getting over that mental hurdle of 252 down to, like, hey, I'll just go to 230. I think, did you have steps in between, or were you like, I'm going balls to the wall, I'm just going to throw it out there and try to go 230 next time?
Originally, it was steps to get there. So I thought, the reason I did decide to go for it was, at the time, the B standards for trials were 2:45. And I was like, 7 minutes over the course of a marathon is very doable. I could do that. So really, I was originally just trying to broach that 2:45 mark. But then my next marathon after that, I dropped a 15-minute PR and I ran a 2:37 or 2:36 or something like that. So that was when I was like, holy smokes, maybe I'm decent at this. Maybe I could just keep working towards that. So
did anything drastically change other than training? Like, did you work with a nutritionist? Did you, like, what were the other steps besides just working with a coach?
I got a lot more intentional with my training. I had never really trained by, like, specific workouts having split goals and time goals. So that was something new that I was like, and if you give me a goal, I'm gonna work hard to hit it. Like, it's just very satisfying, and I'm sure runner brains can relate to that. So it was getting very specific on workouts, and working towards specific times. And then actually at the time I wasn't working with my dietitian. So that comes in later down the line, where I then ran the New York Marathon later and just completely tanked because I was so underfueled. So then like performances have really started to really skyrocket since I had been working on nutrition after that. But honestly, looking back, I really think that the only big thing I shifted was like working on specific workouts with my coach. And then you know what is so funny? I don't know if this has any actual relevance, but in my brain it does. I remember recently I was looking at photos from back then, and I was running in those, like, our race shoes used to be so flat.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh. And so I like remember racing in those, and like my feet hurting, my joints hurting. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, you're pretty much running on cement. So that was like right around the time that all of our, like, you know, bigger, more cushioned shoes have started to come in. So I think maybe, I bet you that has a factor in there, certainly for like recovery and things like that. Cause you couldn't pay me to race in my old racing shoes.
A lot of people like credit the new racing shoes with like being faster, but it's not that they're faster. I do actually think it's that your legs feel better later in the race.
And the next day.
I do.
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. I think that has just it's a different factor on it.
So tell me a little bit about your coach, because from what I've heard, she sounds very fun and maybe not like your traditional running coach.
Yeah. Didn't you take a chance on her? Like you might be the first person that she trained.
Yeah. So I was a first elite. So she is amazing. Her name is Jenny Nedick, and she coaches for, her company is called Mercuria Running. And I lucked out. Like looking back, I'm like, how did this happen? Like she's literally the perfect coach for me. She has an art background. So she went to Carnegie Mellon for art back in the day. And then she was an art teacher for like 10 years. And then she started her company. I think she's had it for 10 years now. But we crossed paths after I won that local Denver marathon. She had run a relay. So we were all at this banquet together, and she just got to chatting, just wanted to know my story because she had heard about me not winning Denver's Next Improv Star and then going to run a marathon. And she was using my story to tell her runners, like, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Like you don't have to, it doesn't have to be so crazy strict. She went and like did this record and this win after having barely any sleep the night before at this improv show. So we just got to chatting, and she asked if she was taking on athletes or something. And she said, I don't have any elites, but I'm willing to take a chance on you if you're willing to take a chance on me. And here we are 4.5 years later. And what's amazing about her that's not traditional is, at least in the traditional sense that you might think, I don't actually know personally other coaches. But I think what I love about her style and our style together is it's super collaborative. So yesterday, for example, we were mapping out my training for my next race, and we were just going through it all together. And she lets me debate different runs with her and just say, I think that this is where this would make the most sense. And she's just so open to collaboration. I think because she has that art background, she's just so open to doing things differently. And I think she just doesn't have rules because she's got this art background, and there's no rules when it comes to art. And so I think we both bring that to the running side of things, of we don't have to do things the traditional way, or what if we get creative or things like that. And that's what's made it just so enjoyable over the past 4 years. Is it's just been fun. Like we have permission to keep it fresh and do things differently. And she's just like super open to that. She'll keep me in check. Like she's definitely, there's moments where she has to rein me in, or tell me to like back off a little bit on like my craziness. And so I think it's just it's just been a really, really great partnership that I'm just grateful that I've had her in my corner this whole time.
It seems like you're both doing improv. Like when you say she's collaborative,
she would never.
No, but I'm saying when you talk about her being creative and collaborative and adjusting workouts and doing this, that's somewhat like improv. But I guess
right.
One of my questions, because we kind of glazed over it. you talk about losing a competition, making it to the final, losing that competition, and then getting up and racing the next day. I like the mindset of, well, I'll just go win this. But a lot of people, I think that they, you put in the work and you have hopes and you're excited and you want to win the improv thing. You could have gone the other way where you're like, screw it, this sucks. And, folded up your chair and walked off stage. What do you think it was about you that you didn't get yourself down and didn't get into your head right before a race?
I think probably looking back, and also looking back on that specific event and then looking back on different moments throughout my running so far, I think that the times that I take the pressure off and the times that I just don't stress about the expectations. Like I thought, like for that race, I remember thinking, I'm just going to go try to win this. And if I win and I set the course record, you get this big, gigantic check. And I was like, that'll be cool. So it was almost like just going out and taking the expectation and the pressure off, which is honestly exactly what happened with Dopey. However, I had a lot of different moments throughout my running that I put way too much pressure on the expectations. And those are the races that I'm miserable. I don't enjoy. Usually I don't hit my goal. The times that I take the pressure off, I usually exceed the goal. So I think I broke the course record that year by like 4 minutes instead of just like right after. But had I just been going for that record, I probably would have hit it right on. But I just kind of let myself take the lid off and just, I don't know. And same thing with Dopey. It was just kind of like, I'm just going to like have this goal, like of this, like what could happen, but I'm just going to focus right now. And I'm just going to enjoy what I'm doing right now. And then that's 9 times out of 10 for me when the results actually come. And I actually surprise myself on what I'm able to do.
So do you want to like get into what is Dopey? Because
no, but before we do that, I'm really curious because I feel the exact same way about pressure. Like I ran a marathon in the fall where I was telling everyone all my goals and putting it all out there, and everyone was watching. In my mind, everyone was watching. Probably no one was, but
I was.
And I blew up, and I had a terrible race. And so I signed up for another one a month later. I didn't tell anyone. I flew to this race by myself. I went on the start line, and I got like a huge PR. And so outside of like actually like not telling anyone and hiding, like how do you remove the pressure that we put on ourselves like for these races?
Yeah, especially now you have a little bit of expectation on you.
Yeah. It's hard. And I can totally relate to that. And it's a weird balance of sharing your goals because you're excited. You want to share the journey. You want people to be along the ride with you. Like I shared, after Boston, I shared that I was going to do Dopey, but I took the times and things off. Well, I couldn't really race for times for Dopey just because it was so absurd with all those races. But for me, I think something that just like really, really helped this time was each day of the racing, I had done my race plan only the night before or the day before because I didn't want to have this whole big thing built up in my head of the marathon when I'm just trying to race a 5K today. But for me, what really, really helps me is just focusing on, I like bring it way down, like thinking about, as simple as it sounds, 1 mile at a time. I genuinely will sit and think about that. I have to do a lot of meditation to just kind of like get my brain to just calm down and remember why I'm actually doing something and if it's just for me. And then I journal a lot. Like anytime my brain is going to this like pressure place, I will journal out like what is actually true or what is actually the expectation and what people actually want for you. So I've learned that people just want you to have fun. People just want you to enjoy what you're doing. You know what, actually, now that I'm talking about this, something that actually really always helps me with this is usually during every training cycle, I go to I love theater. I love performance, obviously. So I'll go to the ballet or a musical or even another sporting event, and I watch the people that you can tell are just loving what they're doing. You can see that energy. I remember distinctly I was at a ballet before trials, and the conductor of the symphony, you could kind of see him lower in the pit, and he was just going to town. Like he was just so into it. And I was more captivated by the conductor than the dancers sometimes, because I was like, he's loving what he's doing. That's the energy I want to put out. People just want to see me having a blast doing what I love. And so that's always a really good reminder for me of like, hang on, pull it back. Like no one cares. If you have a great race and finish really strong, people are more happy about that than if you ran a specific time or something like that. But it's hard. I mean, I really do genuinely feel like it takes daily mental work to remind myself like all of these different things. So, it's kind of I feel like a lot of different techniques and just trial and error of seeing what works to keep your brain
Yeah.
from like going bonkers.
Well, you seem to be doing a great job because all of your race photos, you have a giant smile on your face and you look like you're having the most fun. So you're doing it right.
Thanks. And that took a lot of work. Like it was like, there was several moments, especially in the marathon, that I was like, are you having fun? And I was like, nope, I'm not, because I'm worrying about where first place is, because I was in second. And I was like, nope, this isn't fun.
The
So I
Nopey.
just pull back the pace a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this crazy dopey challenge that you
for
just
people
did.
who don't understand what this Disney World challenge is, could you just kind of walk them through? It's 3 days of racing, right?
4.
4 days.
It's actually 4.
Okay, 4 days of racing. Kind of give us not just what the distances are and stuff. I kind of be interested in what it's like logistically getting ready for these races, because they start pretty early and stuff like that. So if you could just kind of give us a rundown of what the Dopey Challenge is and how you have to approach it, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So the Dopey Challenge is, like we said, 4 days racing. So it's 4 days in a row. It starts on a Thursday and goes through a Sunday. It's during Disney's Walt Disney World Marathon weekend. And so Thursday is your 5K, Friday's the 10K, Saturday's the half marathon, Sunday's the full marathon. And what makes it unique, so yes, you're running through the parks for each race, but what makes it unique is they start so early, because you have to get through the parks before the park goers come. So the races start at 5 a.m. Eastern time. So you're waking up, I mean, anywhere from 2 to 3 a.m.
Yeah, in Denver time,
And then
that's basically midnight.
Oh yeah, that was hard. And in training, I was like, I'm totally going to practice this. And then that never happened. 'Cause I was like, especially in winter, like,
So
I'm like,
painful.
I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I'll just wing it. It'll be fine. Like, and then I think it's so novel. Everybody asks like how hard that is. And it's challenging, but not really. Like once you get up and have coffee, and for me, it was like once I had my cup of coffee and then got my costume on, I was just like ready to go do it, because I loved it. And I also kind of enjoy the earlier races, because you just don't have time to overthink anything. You're just trying to wake up. So you're just kind of like getting out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's just like,
and just before we get into it, not everybody wears costumes. So that's on you, but yeah, let's continue there.
oh yeah. It's not mandatory to, if you do the Dopey Challenge, it's that. However, my coach made it mandatory. She was like, I remember when I asked her about doing this challenge a few months ago, and she was like, yes, I support it, but I really want you to up your costume game. And so I said, can do. But not everybody does, but I mean, probably the great majority are wearing something fun. It's certainly not
Not the winners
your
usually.
traditional running gear. Yeah.
So why did you actually want to do this challenge? Like how did this come about?
So it came about, so I was running the Boston Marathon this past fall, since Boston had gotten moved to the fall this year. And talking about pressure, I mean, I was putting without actually sharing it, just internally, I was putting so much pressure on myself that I felt like I needed to prove that I was quote unquote still fast on the roads, because I felt like that added validity to me as a runner. because after the Olympic trials in 2020, I was on trail. Like I really hadn't run road races since then. So I felt like Boston was my opportunity. I got to like prove that I was still fast for some reason. So this was kind of underlying my training all going into Boston. And then the week before Boston, I was doing a speed workout and I collided with an off-leash husky in like just this park that I do all my workouts in. I like nailed the ground. I got a concussion, messed up my back a little bit. And so I went into Boston injured. You add injury with this mental pressure, and it was just kind of a perfect storm that I ended up pulling out at mile 18 of Boston. But I was just bummed. I was bummed at the whole situation. I was like, why did this happen a week before the Boston Marathon? You know, like this was going to be my opportunity to show people how amazing I still was. For whatever reason, you know, just putting so much weight on the road racing. And I was just like, and again, I asked myself, like, am I having fun? And I was like, no, I'm not. The experience of Boston was fun, but like the whole thing building up just wasn't fun for me then. So I was like, what do I want to do? I still have this fitness that I want to kind of capitalize on. So what could I do that's different, changes it up, but is fun? And I raced Disney. I did 3 races in 2018. And loved them, obviously. And so I was like, I just want to go back to Disney. Like, and then I remember hearing about the Dopey challenge and I was like, that sounds absurd. Like, I want to do that because then that's 4 days of costumes. So that's kind of where it was born. And I pitched it to my coach. I had to take her out for drinks and tell her, like, I had to butter her up a little bit to be like, she would have said yes. She always supports what I'm doing, but she always asks why. So she's always like, I support you, but you've got to tell me why. And if it's not a legit reason that is really supportive for you and your growth and just all of your values as a person and what you are wanting to bring, then we need to just adjust and make sure that it actually makes sense. So that was her constituency was, yes, you need to up your costume use. So that's really where it came from. So it had only been in the works, I mean, since maybe end of October that I decided to do it.
And you used Inside Out as your inspiration for the Dopey challenge, correct?
Part of it. So I was 2 characters from Inside Out. And then I was Elsa from Frozen 2, and then I was Cruella from the new Cruella with Emma Stone. So kind of, yeah, I had, Inside Out's one of my most favorite movies because I just feel like it resonates so well with how my brain works. Like, I feel like I've got like coaching island and running island and art island and all of these different things. And like the different emotions are competing for space in there. And I just thought it was just such a creative movie that I really resonated. So that's why I picked 2 characters from Inside Out.
It was Bing Bong was one, and who was the other one? Was it
Joy?
Joy.
Yeah.
Okay. And Joy, well, that fits in with the theme too, that if you're not having fun, why are you doing it? So
exactly. Yep. And that was part of it. So after we had decided on Dopey, then we talked about, okay, what characters do I want to bring to life and why? And it was because I wanted to pick characters that were really going to set the tone for my 2022 racing. So that's where just these different elements of these different characters came about. And each character kind of had a word or an energy attached to them that I'll then be like continuing to carry through my racing for the rest of this year.
So how did Cruella carry through for the rest? Is she just a bad lady that you, I would say, can I say? I can, I guess. Bad bitch that takes care of business?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what I loved about Cruella, especially the new version, I loved just how artsy the film itself was. I loved her fashion. I loved that they brought this whole new vibrancy to the character, but also you ended up really liking Cruella as a character. Because the word we attached to her was rebel, and rebel meaning outside of the box, and like really just owning being outside of the box, being kind of fierce and confident. So that was like a piece. I felt like I struggled a lot, especially like going into Boston and everything last year. I feel like I just was really trying to work through my imposter syndrome. And so I feel like Cruella was somebody that never had imposter syndrome. She was just like, this is me. here I am. I'm out of the box. I've got black and white hair. I'm going to own it. Just that was just kind of the vibe that I really loved about that it was almost like a positive rebel, a positive rebelliousness, as opposed to like the traditional sense.
Have you dug in deeper to the imposter syndrome thing, and why? Do you have any thoughts on why runners and people in general tend to get caught up in self-doubt?
For me, I think I get so like black and white on things. In fact, like my coach and I have been working on we call it living in the gray zone, where it's not these like extremes of things. I think as runners, I mean, we're attached to hard evidence, right? Like we're attached to our splits, we're attached to our times. And for me personally, I just feel like, and I don't know exactly where this came from, but I feel like my worth as a runner is attached to my place or my times, at least specifically on the road, for whatever reason. I think maybe because I got so inspired. Like the year before I quit my job was the year that Shalane won the New York City Marathon. And that was just this, I was like, that's me. I could do that. And it was so inspiring. And so I just started chasing this path down this road world that I just thought that's the key to success, or that is where all of the best are. So for me, it was just all this internal piece of feeling like I needed to prove something. And then as you do that, you're never going to be satisfied. You're never going to fill that cup all the way up but for me, I got down obsessive paths of comparison. And especially now with our social media world, I mean, that was kind of a dark storm for me, was just chasing down these rabbit holes of this is what elite runners do, like, and this is how they look.
Validation.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's something I've really been working on. And I feel like it's like daily that I'm constantly having to check in with myself of like, it's almost like these like cliche mantras of like, you are enough, like you're enough just right as you are, just being you. But that's scary to trust sometimes, because it feels better in the moment to get the validation from other people. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to sit and live with yourself. And it's like, if you aren't feeling that yourself, it's almost like
nobody can fill it up.
Like lonely place to be. Yeah. So it's been tough. Like I feel like so many people are probably in the same boat of that. But that was also this piece of Dopey, was prove to myself that I can do it my way, and I can enjoy it. And like the joy of the running matters more than the times.
I do think one thing that I find is, we do tie ourselves to results, and it is a measurement of success in running. And there you can earn outside respect from just being fast, but the things that come that are intangible from running, the relationships, the sense of accomplishment, just the joy of being out there on the road. Like sometimes we forget that and we don't feel it's enough. And if you do that, you miss out on so much of what running is and the lifestyle that it can give you. But I always find that interesting with imposter syndrome. I even think, for a certain degree, it affects people who are running 9-minute miles to the people that are running 5:15s for a marathon. It's the same. There's always someone you can compare yourself to. You could always have more what you think is the runner's body, or the success that comes with running fast, PRs, BQs, all that stuff. And I think that when we first get into running, especially as a novice, you get hooked on those PRs because they come really fast. If you just, like you said, when you started running, you didn't have a coach and you weren't doing nutrition right. You figured out the coaching, you started doing workouts, you got faster, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, it's a little bit different. And then you get the nutrition worked out. And again, it's a leap forward. And then there's like a plateau where sometimes stuff isn't going right and you question everything that's going on. So I think it's interesting to get some insight into your brain and to see, that someone who is having fun, doing it their way, winning races, still has doubts and insecurities around running, which it doesn't seem like anybody we've ever talked to has exercised those demons 100%. Maybe Ilya.
Yeah, and I think
Kipchoge. That was it.
yeah, maybe I think he's like a superhuman.
Yeah.
I think it constantly that work in progress, and I think you'll never get rid of it all because it's what makes you human. It makes you relatable, and those PRs are fun to get. I mean, that's why I mean that like we do chase those times because it's that symbol of my hard work has paid off, or it's the symbol of I never thought I could do that. Like, what am I capable of now? So I think that there's this trying to find that balance of the positives of it, because at the end of the day, that is what we're working towards. But how do we keep it more fulfilling for ourselves when those aren't happening all the time? Because you're right, as you start to get faster and faster, those PRs are fewer and far between.
You don't go from 252 to 230 right away.
Yeah. But it's also set the mental PRs. That's a huge one for me, is setting mental PRs, because it's so much more abstract. And I think that that's where this art piece comes in for me. That's helped me in my running is if I think about it as an artist, art, there's no rules. Or like, well, I like this piece of art. It looks kick-ass to me. Like, I'm enjoying looking at it. You don't have to. But for me, I love it. And so it's kind of putting that art vibe to things makes it feel less pressure for me, or makes it like, yes, the time is there, but like big picture, here's what's bringing this piece to life.
Yeah. And so you won every event at the Dopey channel, meaning came in first place for the 5K, first place for the 10K, first place for the half, and first place for the marathon. And Disney's been doing this for a while.
29 years.
How does this happen every year? There's somebody who does this every year?
No, this is the first time ever. Like, male or female, never happened.
So when
you're the dopiest dopey.
You convince your coach over some drinks that you're going to do this. Do you guys set the goal of winning every distance event, or what's your mindset going into it?
Nope. In fact, that was something that I think we had talked about that as a possibility, but right away we took that off the table because, again, with all these years of working together, my coach knows that that is a recipe for disaster for me mentally. So no, we talked through, like, I don't even remember if that was even a conversation of, I think we had maybe said, yes, it's a possibility that could happen, but if that is going to be my goal, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to even sign up. So the goal was a couple of different things. It was, I want to go just accomplish something I've never done before. I've never raced 4 days in a row. So it was like, I want to go finish these races and accomplish that. I want to, on every single day, my goal was I want to execute my own race plan, and I want to prove to myself that I can stick to my own race plan no matter what happens on each day. And then it was just like, I mean, honestly, it was just like kicking off fun, I guess. Like if we're looking at it, I'm like, I think it was just bringing, like, just doing something different, a new challenge, and can I enjoy this every step of the way was really big picture piece of it.
Did you go on rides afterwards, or did you just go back to the hotel and sleep?
During every day, I didn't go to the parks. So we did a VIP tour on the Monday after the race, where we got to go to all the parks and ride the rides. But the days in between, I was doing different things. No lines. It was very bougie, but it's amazing.
Do you know what that's worth? Like a speed pass for the day is like $1,000 for a family, right? And they still have to wait in line.
Yeah, we skipped the lines. Like I felt a little bit, I did feel bad because it was people waiting in like really long lines. And I was like, I'm sorry. Like, but we had our adorable VIP tour guide who like led the way. So it looked like we had somebody who was in charge of it.
You deserved it for sure.
Yeah. Everybody, there goes Gwen Stefani.
Yeah. And she's wearing her race medal. I don't understand.
Okay, so you said you wouldn't like look at your race plan until the day before for each event. So when you're talking about a race plan, is that like, here are the paces I want to hit, or is it like, here's how I want to feel, or what does a race plan look like?
Mm-hmm. So I chunk out every single race into either, like, obviously for the 5K, it was each mile I like chunked it out. And then obviously as the distances got longer, I was doing bigger chunks. So I usually do a bigger chunk in the beginning and then more digestible pieces along the rest of the way. So it might be like 5 miles and then 2 miles and then 1 mile, 1 mile, whatever it may be. But I just there were no splits attached to any of these. And in fact, leading up to training this whole time, I didn't check my watch. I didn't look at my splits once like in any of my workouts. It was just training by effort because I knew like at the end of the day, like marathon's going to be my hardest. I can't get attached to splits because I have no idea how it's going to feel running on that tired of legs. So I just attached each race plan was themed to each character, and I just attached different energies or vibes to each chunk of the race. And then during the half marathon, I was dressed up as Joy. And so so that one was unique because I actually broke out each mile at a time, and I dedicated each mile to someone that's been on my journey or a group of people that have been on my journey. I coach adults and kids. And so there were a couple miles that was like dedicated to my adult runners. And it helped me just focus on that 1 mile. And when I got ahead of myself, I could hear that person being like, don't go crazy, just hang out, just have fun, just hang out. And I would picture that person. And I felt like if I was dedicating that mile to them, I wouldn't let them down. Like I'm not gonna slow down, or I'm not gonna enjoy this because I promised you, my sister, that I would enjoy this because we enjoy our runs together. And that one really helped break it down. I normally wouldn't break down each mile like that, but it just seemed to work so well for Joy and for the half. But every other time it's usually a word or a mantra that, like for Elsa, for example, I kicked off the weekend. The first mile of the 5K was ease into the unknown. So I used different songs from different Frozen movies or the musical and just attached different energies to the vibe I wanted to be in that chunk at a time.
Were there ever parts of any of these races where there was a woman in front of you that you got like competitive vibes and took off?
The marathon, she said, right?
Yeah.
You're in second place. It had to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was actually the half and the full. I started to have competition. So that was the test of, okay, you said you were going to trust your race plan. You said that you were going to ease into these first miles. There's somebody ahead of you. For the half, I think I passed the woman who was in first around mile 5 or 6. Okay. So for the first half of it, I had to trust, like, nope, like you said, you weren't going to go crazy, even though you're not in first. And again, you told yourself that you weren't here to try to win them all. You told yourself what your other goals were. This is your test to stick to that. So, so that was challenging. And then when I got to the marathon, there were 2 women ahead of me. I thought there was only one. So when I passed what now is third place at mile like 9 or 10, I was like, cool, like I'm in first, I can do this. And then my cyclist, he was like, okay, you're in second. And I was like, no, I'm not, I'm in first. And
That's the worst.
No. Yeah, he's like, no, I'm the second place cyclist. Like, you're in second. And I was like, no, I'm not, I am in first. And he was like, no, the first place woman is way far ahead of you. So I had to like, again, settle in and just trust like, okay, like, but I also was like, you can't go crazy because I'm tired. And I have to just trust that I know I get better with time. So I knew if I could just stay steady, I could probably start to like make up some gaps.
Also,
but again, I go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You also don't know like if she's just there for the marathons. She could have had fresh legs, been out there. So here you are. This is your 4th day into this. You've been waking up every day at what feels like midnight in Colorado. And you've just been told by the second place cycle pacer that you're in second place. Like for me, that's like seeing, you think you're going to come up on the 17 mile marker and you see the 16 mile marker. You're like, what happened?
Yeah, totally. And I knew the 2 women at this point, like I knew that they were on fresh legs. I knew that there wasn't anybody else that had been doing what I was doing at that effort. So, yeah, there were like specific moments during the marathon. And I prepped, obviously in training, I prepped for, you always train for those moments when it gets really hard. Like I always train for when it gets hard, making the choice to keep going, versus backing off. And so I had prepped that. And so I knew, and in every race plan, I always have what is going to be your word, mantra, phrase, or whatever that's going to remind you to, like, just keep focusing, just keep working when it starts to get hard. And I had that in my mind in the marathon. I knew that was going to come, but that started maybe around like mile 11. Like I was mentally and physically like, oh my gosh, it started way earlier than I thought. So there was like, I felt like there was so much mental work that was actually happening versus the actual running in all those miles until I started to come up on the woman who was in first. So yeah, I mean, that was challenging. And then running on tired legs was a whole different challenge.
Was
but
first
that's
place
what I
in
wanted.
costume too?
She wasn't, unfortunately.
Okay, so she got passed by Cruella DeVille. That's gotta sting.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
What mile marker did you pass her?
20. It was after 20 because
Oh, wow.
people afterwards told me that they were freaking out because they were tracking the race and I was still in second at mile 20. So, and then there weren't any other mile markers to go after that.
Wow.
There weren't any other checkpoints. So it was right around 20.
So nobody knew until they knew that you had crossed the finish line. Yeah, that's rough.
I think so. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you win the 5K, you win the 10K, and you win the half, and obviously we know you won the full as well. But when you're heading into the full, after you've already won the first three, your mind has to kind of shift to, I'm doing this now, I'm going to win all of them, right?
Sure. Yeah, that definitely came to the equation. Like it was like, it was almost like I've done all this work.
Yeah.
I do want this. I do want to win. But my coach and I talked about, specifically before the half and specifically before the full, how am I going to keep that in check? How am I going to keep my mind from wandering to the end result, to right back where I'm at? And that was, again, I wanted to challenge myself to prove to myself that I could do my own race plan. So when I was not leading in the marathon and the win was like maybe not in my hands, I had to come back to, what are you going to do if you don't win? And I was visualizing crossing the finish line without the tape and the confetti, and I was like, I'm going to come through. And like, I did it. Like at the end of the day, I still completed it, which is huge. But then there were moments like, especially in those middle chunk miles, that I was like, I do want this. Like, I remember asking, how bad do you want it? Cause I was ready to just be like, I'm good. Like, I don't even know where she's at. She can have it,
Yeah.
And then I was like, but I do want this. I've worked really hard. This is the last little bit to keep pushing through. So that was, again, like so much mental dialogue, talking to myself back and forth.
It's interesting because you wonder, okay, say that you came in second at the half or didn't, get the half. What would your mental, would have you been able at mile 11 to be like, I got to stay focused here. I know I'm struggling mentally. Or would have that been like, well, whatever, I'll just finish today?
I don't know. That's a good question, because I did have those thoughts also in the half of what happens if I don't win this. And I think, I don't know what I would have thought. I hope I would have settled into I could still go get the win and it's still part of the story. But I think where I had to really work, and something I journaled, was I wrote, don't write the story before it happens. Because in my brain, so much often, with performing and all that, I'm a storyteller. And so I often want to know what story we're telling. What's my script? And this is just an exercise of nope, don't write it before it happens. And so it was just you never know what's going to happen. I was in the 2020 US Trail Championships, and I was in third place until mile 25. And I was thinking about that during the marathon, is I didn't get into second place until mile 25. And so I was like, you never know what can happen. And I always tell my runners, especially my high school athletes, it's not over until it's over. You keep going until that finish line, because you never know what could happen. And I've learned to trust that, and that just takes experience and trust with that. But that was something I remember thinking about during that, is you could still have a great result if you just keep focused.
It's such a hard thing to learn in running, because you go out there and, I mean, one, even at the beginning of the race, when everybody pops off the line, everybody starts off too fast, and it's hard not to get caught up and want to stay like, I should be up with that person, kind of mentality. But it's also when you're in that middle part of that race, that long part of the race, where you're past the excitement of the start, you're miles away from the excitement for the finish, and you just have to like kind of sit and, I guess, kick. You could say sit and kick, but not the same as in track. But sit there and just work your plan. And I think it's underrated how important that part of the race is, to just stay mentally in the like, hey, if I execute here, I have an opportunity. Even if it doesn't look like it right now, there's an opportunity. We don't know what's going on with the people in front of us. We don't know, did they go out too fast? Did they, drink the wrong thing at the aid station? There's so many people to try to pass at the finish that if you can be patient, you get that satisfaction.
And that's the piece where you have to just trust, just focus on yourself and focus on what you can control. Every one of those things, how somebody else is racing, all of those factors are out of your control. And for me, that's too much for me to mentally grapple with and try to hang on to, because it's just so unknown. But if I can just focus on myself, I can control that. I can control what I'm doing. I can control my breath, whatever it is. And then that is a lot more, that is where it's more comfortable. It's just like, okay, this is what I can do, and that's all I can control. Everything else, I'm just going to let it happen.
So you cross the finish line. You have officially won all 4 races. What are you thinking, and what do you do? Like, what's the first thing you do after the marathon?
She goes to Disney World.
I go to Disney World. Yeah, exactly what you'd expect. I remember crossing, and it was just this moment of, I was so proud that I, number 1, had done the whole weekend, and number 2, that the win was awesome. I mean, like, I had done it. Like, that, it was just, I was so proud of myself. I think because of all that work I had to put in mentally in the marathon, I think it made it that much sweeter, because I felt like that was mentally such big wins for me that I struggled with that in the past. And so this was like, hell yeah, I did it. I like proved myself I could do it. I did my whole weekend's plan, and I enjoyed it, and I loved it. And like, it was just a like, it was just so awesome.
A lot of people do the Dopey challenge because you get, the medals are insane. So people who are Disney fans, it's got the characters on the medals. It's just a fun, joyful style event. And if you do the Dopey, you of course get the 4 medals for the races, and then you get a giant Dopey medal, right? Does Disney World have any plan to get you something special for like winning all the Dopey challenge? Like, do you have a lifetime like pass to the park, or what did they do for you?
I think so. Yeah, that we talked about, because I was chatting with the Run Disney people afterwards, and they, I think, are trying to work on a like Dopey. So when you win the half and the full, you get these giant trophies. Because I won the half in 2018. And you get this giant, here, I'll show you guys.
Get it. Megan's going to go run to Disney now.
Extremely heavy. It's an extremely heavy, like, legit trophy that this has Donald
Scrooge McDuck. Is that Scrooge McDuck, or is that just Donald?
No, it's just Donald.
Okay.
He's just fancy.
Dressed up.
Yeah, he's just dressed up
Donald
Duck. But you
tails.
With a bow tie, everything. He's living his best life. So you get that for the half and the full, but they didn't give them to us this year because they weren't doing award ceremony, so they're going to mail them to us. But they did say they were going to try to create a Dopey winner challenge trophy, which I really hope. I'm going to keep pestering them, because I'm like, I really think that'd be awesome to have.
I think it should be life size too, like a giant Dopey that you can put out on your lawn.
Could you imagine? I would love that.
Yeah.
Okay,
your husband, I believe, made you these amazing cookies for afterwards.
Yeah. He, my husband owns a cookie company called Sugar Tats Cookie Company. And I asked him ahead of time, I was like, it'd be so awesome to have cookies that match my outfits, like each character at the finish lines every day. So he made a whole set of cookies. And at the finish line of every day, we brought one and I ate one as that character that matched the cookie.
See, I'd never be able to stay in marathon shape if you had a cookie store.
Oh no, I just tell myself it's all carbs. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's good. Like, it's all fuel. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I did want to ask about your nutrition between these races because, like, when you're training for a marathon, you normally do like a carb loading like a few days before. You're not racing before marathons typically. So did you have to alter your nutrition at all, or did you just pretty much stick to normal?
Or take in more.
Yeah, it was pretty normal. I fuel really high carb throughout training anyway. No, we really didn't. I didn't have to change too much. I obviously ate more snacks on the, like, in between meals, as the distances kept going, and I was certainly eating more the day before the marathon. But no, nothing really changed too much. The biggest factor was, my post-race fuel. So I would have my cookie, and then, I have like a protein shake and a couple go-go squeeze afterwards, just like right after. Just that was huge just for recovery. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of my biggest thing I made sure I was getting in every day, was I knew I had to like really stay on top of recovery for that. But no, not much else changed otherwise. Everything was kind of the same in between.
So for recovery wise, did you add anything, like were you doing the leg boots or, any of those crazy tools that are now out for recovery?
My husband did the leg boots. He did not do.
I'm telling you what, spectating is hard work sometimes.
Tell you what, I mean, he probably walked a couple miles. I get it. Yeah,
but it's just standing
and
on
he made all
cement,
those cookies.
Yeah,
he was tired from the cookie making for sure.
I'm here for him.
He did. He did those boots, and then I actually bought one of those mini Theraguns, and it's like the most adorable little Theragun. And actually, that was awesome because I just didn't feel like foam rolling. I had brought my foam roller, but I just didn't feel like it. And the Theragun actually, like, I felt significantly better. This is not a plug for Theragun, but I did feel significantly better after that. So that was actually something I had never done or used before, and ended up buying one of those. It was awesome.
So if Theragun's listening, though, you wouldn't mind a sponsorship?
I mean, I wouldn't mind like some pro, like the Theragun Pro, the like super extreme one.
Yeah.
I like it. Speaking of sponsorship, you are sponsored by the North Face. Are you, I mean, you're obviously a road runner and you're a trail runner.
They're pretty liberal, I think, with road racing, though. They used to let Michael Wardian wear whatever he wanted on the road. Is that the case with you?
Yeah, kind of. It's a little bit of new territory, I think, for them and for me. And that was something that, when we were negotiating my contract during the first year, I was very open with, like, I still have a lot of big goals on road, and they were so supportive of that, which I wasn't expecting. I think when you think North Face, you think just rugged outdoors, and I'm certainly loving the trail scene, but I still am enjoying things on the road. But I remember I called them before, like when I decided what I was doing for Disney, and I was like, listen, I have this crazy thing that I'm doing, and they also know me. They're like, she's in costume, like whatever. And I was like, I'm going to be in costume. Clearly, North Face doesn't make costumes. Are you okay with me, number one, being in costume and not in North Face race gear, but also, can I have creative liberty to put the logo on my costumes myself? And they were like, I remember, like, they were like, sure, like, yeah, do whatever you want. I don't think they realized that it was going to blow up or become what it was or any of these things. But yeah, no, they've been really, really supportive of this kind of dual world. So it's been cool.
And so what is next for you? Is there something coming up, or are you taking some downtime?
Are we not going to ask what road shoe? Because North Face doesn't have a road shoe.
What road shoe were you wearing for these?
I was in two different shoes. So I was in the Saucony Endorphin Pro, I think.
Yep.
For Bing Bong. Only reason I chose those ones is because it matched my outfit better.
It is a pretty shoe too. I like it.
Yeah, with the checker marks and everything.
Yeah.
I wore those for Bing Bong, and then the other days. So since North Face doesn't make road shoes, I can wear whatever road shoes I want, but I still wanted to, again, I want to like bring my art vibe to this. So I had the alpha flies for the rest of them, but a friend of mine, I call myself Mountain Shark on the trails. Like that's my trail name is Mountain Shark. So I had him paint mountain sharks over the Nike logo for those shoes, and I had them for Boston, and so I brought them back and I wore those again the whole time. So my shoes have sharks painted on them.
Nice.
I like it.
Yeah, and I've known other athletes. North Face does a great job with outfitting in for the trails, but without having a proper road shoe for racing, they seem to be open to letting you.
Which is awesome because, like, I mean, as you know, the shoe doesn't make or break anything, but I mean that's a factor for sure. So I was a little bit nervous, like, do I have to like run? How am I going to race in a trail shoe? And actually, a lot of their shoes are great that I can just run my regular training runs in them, like my regular
trail kind
just.
of.
Yeah, totally. But certainly for racing, that makes a big difference. So they've actually been really, really supportive of letting me have freedom in whatever shoe for road I want to race in.
That's awesome. So is there something coming up on the calendar? Are you racing or are you taking some downtime, or what are we looking towards?
This week, so I took last week off, obviously. Then this week I was like, I still want to do something fun. So I pitched to my coach on Monday. I said, I did 48 miles in 4 days. Could I do 48 miles in 1 day? So I am going to be racing the Lake Sonoma. It's actually a 48 miler, not a 50 miler. So that's what's
distance.
next. It's terrifying. So that's what's
Cool.
next. I'm kind of like,
is that on trail or road?
It's on trail. It's 10,000 feet gain over the course of 50 miles. So it's not wild. It's at sea level technically. It's going to be absurd. But it is a lot of roller. Like it's just basically, they call it just relentless rollers. So
that is the worst. We did the North Face 50 miler in
the Marin Headlands.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted flat so bad. Like when I was going uphill, my legs hurt. When I was going downhill, my legs hurt. I was like, come on, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Give me a break. I also chose that because trials were super, super hilly in Atlanta, and I loved it. I loved it because it, again, took this pressure off of pace for me. So I really loved the training because I I went hard, but it was uphill. So not my fault. I remember leading up to trials, I kept telling myself that my mantra for myself was I was an absolute beast on hills, and that there was not a hill I wouldn't run. So if I was on a training run and there was a hill, I would go run it. It didn't matter. It was almost like collecting hills. So that's going to kind of be my strategy again for this. It could absolutely be a horrible idea. But yeah, I'm excited. Just why not? I'm going to just see how it rolls. And then my number one goal this year is to make Team USA for the World Mountain Championships. So I do want to get back out on trail and just kind of get some of this little bit longer stuff just to keep bolstering my resume for to hopefully make the team for the mountain championships.
That's awesome. Very cool.
And it brought up earlier, the thing about more pressure on roads than trails. I think the big difference for me, at least, is on the roads. Again, it comes down to measurement. You have an expectation. It doesn't matter which marathon course you're running. There's an expectation of pace and finish time. Where on trails, it's okay, you're running the Marin Headlands. Well, who knows what that's going to be compared to running, in Colorado on a different trail. They're not comparable. The paces aren't comparable. So it's just based on effort. So I do think that's where the stress comes out.
And I do think it's a different vibe with the trail community. I think it's a bunch of it's fun. The starting line, you just rock up with everybody else 2 minutes before you go. There's no shoots. There's no things like that. And I just think the trail world just seems to have a more chill vibe to it that I really enjoyed getting to be a part of.
It's like a Dead concert or a Fish concert versus a pop band concert or something.
100%. That's such a good way to put it. Yeah, you don't get all dressed up for this concert. You're just I'm just like rocking up.
Okay, we have 3 very quick end of podcast questions that we would love to ask you. First one is headphones or no headphones on a solo run?
Both. So on trail, I never wear headphones. I have my phone facing up with the speaker up in my pack, but I pretty much am always listening to podcasts or tunes on trail because I like that, but also I secretly think it's going to scare away animals. So for trail that, and then for road, headphones. Unless when I'm doing a speed workout, I take my headphones out and I just tune into my breath. But other than that, I'm usually listening to a podcast or a book or something like that.
And if it's music, who would be on your playlist?
Right now, I have my Broadway tunes going a lot. Hamilton is always on my playlist. Today I'm listening to Taylor Swift because I'm doing a Taylor Swift.
Oh, I like it.
Workout. I coach at a wellness center and we're doing a Taylor Swift themed workout today. So I needed to be listening to Taylor Swift.
I mean, the survey says when we talk to both male athletes and females, Taylor Swift seems to be at the top of everybody's playlist.
Yeah.
She's got some jams.
Yeah.
Okay, what is your celebratory post-race meal or beverage, or both?
A cookie, a Sugar Tots Cookie Company cookie.
Okay.
And that's a non-shameless plug for sure.
Well, you're clearly sponsored.
Yeah, exactly. I think I sponsor him. I always get a beer.
Okay.
I've been into IPAs lately, so I always have like a beer, wine, or something like that just to kind of celebrate. And then lately it's been like French fries. Like I've really been digging the fries post race. I think it's probably just all the salt.
Cool. Okay, and if you were not a professional runner, what would you be doing?
I think I know the answer to this.
It's a double-parted answer. I already know the answer. Because when I retire from running, I am going to be number 1 on Broadway. Number 2, I'm going to be an Irish step dancer.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Like a river dancer?
For sure.
All right.
Yes. I feel like I'll be really good at it because as a runner, I'm so unbelievably uncoordinated. And with Irish step dancing, everything upper body doesn't have to do anything. So it's all leg. So I think it's going to be a really natural transition.
All right, I like it.
I don't want you to leave the sport because I love following you, but I can't wait for the.
I think you should start working on your finish line jig.
Yeah.
So like once you cross the finish line, you do like a quick little Irish dance and make that your trademark.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to put this in my mental note here. My dad would love that.
St. Patty's Day 5K, dressed as a leprechaun, come across and do your dance.
Across.
Yeah.
Or what if for the St. Patty's Day 5K, I jigged the whole thing?
Ooh.
Like, what if I Irish steps danced the whole thing?
I think we'd have to get Guinness on. We did follow a person that now is a Guinness World Record. We trailed him. He did 3 marathons in 3 days. We did the Baltimore, the Chicago Marathon, and the Boston Marathon, all averaging 2:30 for his pace. And he did get the Guinness World Record. So if you do that and we can figure out
we'll
it's a
film
Guinness
you.
World Record,
We'll make it
we'll
a
come out
thing.
and cover it.
100%. I coach a runner. She has the Guinness World Record for the fastest 10K pushing a triple stroller. And turns out there's like a lot of rules with setting a Guinness World Record.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's not cheap too
All right.
because you have to
start
do
research.
entry fees and all that stuff. But yeah, check it out.
Okay. All right. Noted. That could be a really fun challenge.
He happened to get sponsored. Well, not sponsored. Under Armour helped it. How do we even? Their marketing team, because he can't be sponsored.
He partnered
with Under Armour. And they helped get some of the things. So maybe North Face would be interested in having an athlete with the fastest 5K jig.
I highly doubt it. They're probably like, Brittany, can you just run trail like a normal person?
Oh, I love it. All right. Brittany, thanks so much for coming on today. Super fun to get to know you. I'm so excited to follow your journey from here. And yeah, awesome. It's all good.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. And I just hope everybody listening goes and has as much fun too.